back, dude. I don't even have my earphones in.
Yeah, you can't even hear him.
Probably should put that in. Now I got him in. Welcome back, Bryce. What?
Oh, hold on. This is on me.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. It's on him. It was on him.
We got you, Bryce.
I was
welcome
take
back,
the ball
dude.
for you, buddy.
Let me ask you this.
I just wanted.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go. You go
I
first.
wanted to know why you enunciated my last name so aggressively.
Yeah.
Well,
because
because
he was going to try to make people think that we had Bryce Underwood on.
I wasn't trying to do that. Then I realized after I said Bryce and there was a gap, I was like, shit. They think I just talked about Bryce Underwood. They probably think it's Bryce Underwood. So then I panicked and I yelled your name.
And then you fumbled.
And then I fumbled. It was a tough intro, but you know what? It's not how you start, it's how you finish, and that's what we're going to try to do here. We're going to finish this thing strong. But I do have a question for you. You brought your kid, your beautiful baby girl,
Finish strong.
to the presser. Were you nervous that, like, what if she just starts wailing, crying, and then it just – because, look, there's a lot of good acoustics from the indoor.
Well, this was actually a Walmart. So this was the presser in the outdoor section at Walmart for when the players like take the kids shopping and everything. So no,
that's the difference.
It was all good.
Yeah, well, good.
Yeah.
She
He knows what he has.
She was
no
awesome.
doubt.
Okay.
You've been good. That you wouldn't be confident. You've been a good dad. You're confident in bringing your child out in a social setting like that, knowing that she's going to be a-okay. So I appreciate that.
I'm glad that we have checked that off Mikey's approval.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you're worried about that. But I'm here to give it to you. So, but let's talk about this transfer portal and college football and LSU and everything that's kind of been happening. A month ago, we talked to you last week. Obviously, the portal was starting to get rolling. LSU hadn't really gotten all the guys that they have gotten now, and a week later, they have 9 signees. And more on the horizon. It seems to be over the next couple of days. I imagine that's going to continue to grow. How do you feel that they have started in this portal season, and how do you think they're going to finish in this portal season?
Yeah, I mean, I think fans are excited, right? I mean, we kind of go back to like 2 weeks ago where we're getting into signing day. A lot of the fans were kind of, I don't want to say doubting, but they were a little bit worried about where LSU would go for 2025. The Bryce Underwood situation, they're not going to pay for players, and they're one of the most aggressive spenders 7-8 months later, knowing that 2025 is such an important year. So, I love the additions that they've made. I think that this is, I don't know if you guys want to go through every single guy or just some guys that, however you want to take it. I mean, I genuinely think that the guys they brought in are not, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this, they're not afterthoughts. These aren't bounce back guys.
Yeah, these aren't death pieces.
You can make an argument for maybe like a guy like Jakeem Jackson. Yeah, you can make the argument for a guy like Jakeem Jackson that, was hurt last year, so he really didn't have the tape that you wanted. But the rest of these guys are pretty much guys that can play. And you're going to plug and play, and you're going to hope that they can help you, reach the SEC title and reach that 12-team playoff. So I like the way they've attacked this. They've been aggressive. You always hear different figures and numbers thrown out at certain things. But, and for me, I guess I would say is they've been aggressive. They've filled a lot of needs. You still want to see them bolster different spots. Safety's one of those. Offensive line, we're kind of still waiting on, I think, one guy that a lot of people feel like is going to commit. And then it's just kind of adding around the edges. I mean, you kind of go with like the meat and potatoes of what you needed.
Well, who's the offensive lineman that's going to commit?
You hit on it.
You said who's the O-lineman that's
so the kid from Virginia Tech.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so Braylon Moore is the guy that, I mean, it's pretty, I would say it's as public can get off of a message board. That's the guy that we all expect to be kind of the next domino to fall. And look, his teammate Mansour, Delane has committed. They were on the visit together. Braylon Moore wanted to go back home. He hasn't scheduled any other visits. And that's a guy that, well, I'll say this, you can plug and play straight up and play center, and maybe you can move DJ Chester to guard, where maybe he can, grow into that role. And maybe that's better suited for him at the college level. So they're hosting the tackle from the offensive tackle from Washington State this weekend. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because I'll butcher it and that'd be awful. But I think they could add one or two pieces and then rely on some of the younger guys that you've recruited over the past 2 years to maybe develop. but I like the way they've attacked this, and I think if you're an LSU fan sitting here, you're like, there's real reason to be excited. There's real reason to have optimism, and I don't know. And you mentioned in your opening, we're going to have to see. Obviously, the real judgment's going to come next fall, right? Like that's when we're going to really see. But right now, like Brian Kelly's going to go down swinging. Whether 2025 results in a playoff, whether it results in a new coach, whether it results in another average year, and we see the same conversation happening for 2026. They're going down swinging in here in 2025 for this offseason.
Bryce, let me ask you this. Since we're kind of touching on all of them and we've kind of bounced around from position group to position group, in your opinion right now to this day, because I would imagine there's 12 teams left still in the playoff, there's still a number of players that might hop in the portal. Who knows what can still happen. But as we sit here today right now, what position group do you think has kind of had the biggest upgrade of who they've brought in through the portal already?
I'm going to cheat here, and I'm going to add in high school recruiting because I think it's the secondary. Just talking with people, and even people, back when I covered the ACC and knowing some people who covered Virginia Tech, Mansour Delane right now to me is like the most impactful guy. This is a guy who was very good in the ACC. And it's, look, I understand the ACC is maybe not the SEC, but against the two games that they played against two top 15, top 10 passing offenses, Syracuse and Miami, Delane had really good games. And you kind of go back to, what he does best. He's a ball hawk. He's a guy that he can play boundary corner, but in one of those games, and I can't remember which one it was, they needed him for several series to kind of slot back at safety. He did that. One of the next two drives, he gets a pick. So this is a guy that, in Delane for me he's interchangeable. He gives you versatility back there. And look, it allows for other guys to be more comfortable. And look, you go back 2 years ago, this has just been a secondary that I just don't think that it actually had a comfortable starting four. We'll just cheat and say four guys, two corners, two safeties, to where they say, you know what, everyone's in the right spot and everyone's at their best spot. Even last year, the guys just left a lot to be desired. It wasn't the best starting four in terms of that. So I think Delane gets you there because he allows for some versatility where it doesn't put a lot of pressure on DJ Pickett, right? Like you're going to have Ashton Stamps, who is, we're going into year 3 as a starter. Then you're going to have DJ Pickett, who he can also play some safety. It's 6'4", nearly 200 to 190 pounds, whatever he needs to get up to. So if Pickett's not ready to go day one, you've got a guy that's, all ACC level that can come in and slot right there. If he is ready to go, then maybe that offers some flexibility for Delane to move around, maybe to play some safety because he's a sure tackler too. So they just really needed to find some stuff back there because you get to some of the flashier names, Jared, like wide receiver, it's fun to talk about what Nick Anderson and Barry and Brown can do. I just think the biggest need right now was that secondary. You needed some explosive players, some flash players. And just talking to people, Delane is a really, really good pickup. And a lot of people were impressed LSU was able to get him and how quickly they were able to get him to commit.
Go ahead, real quick, just because of you just mentioned his name, obviously there was a little bit, I don't want to say obviously, but there was a little bit of chatter that he may have entered his name in the NFL draft. That came up. I've read some things from Shea Dixon from 247 that was a possibility, but now it feels like he is all in on LSU. Is that can that be confirmed?
I can't 100% confirm it, but what I will say is that for me, from the two things I'm to understand is that the opportunity to come to LSU was he wanted to play against the best and he wanted to test himself more. There had been conversations with he and his representation about entering the NFL draft, before he entered his name into the portal. Once they got the sense of the schools that were looking at him, that dwindled down. So I know that's not a definite answer, but I think it does offer a little bit of insight into the thought process of what he had as we might want to enter our name in. And once they kind of got a feel of, here's the schools that are interested, which for people who don't know, this is a guy who, was rumored to be going to visit Ole Miss and then, just calls Ole Miss and says, hey, I'm not coming, and turns around and tells the LSU staff, I'm ready to commit now. So could it happen? Of course. I mean, there's nothing that's completely off the table, but it would surprise me to kind of see him enter his name into the draft at this point.
Staying on the defensive side of the football, obviously we talked about the secondary. I think that was obviously the biggest need. I think that's been the biggest need for a while. A position that was one of the strengths of the team this year that now is kind of depleted is the defensive end spot, right? The edge rushers. You lose both starters. And then you lose a couple guys to the portal. You have a bunch of young guys that actually had some flashy plays through the course of the year, but they didn't have a ton of snaps. And it seems like the staff wants to replenish that depth. Not necessarily saying, hey, these guys are going to come in and be day one starters and play as many snaps as the other two defensive ends played, but it feels like they want to have that rotation. Is that kind of the sense that you're getting from the staff and from the guys they brought in?
Yeah, and you kind of look at who was supposed to take the reins, and I mean Brian Kelly kind of alluded to it. He pretty much said it without saying his name. Like the biggest head scratcher was Deshaun Womack, in terms of like this is a guy who was pretty much slotted to be the guy, and if he was frustrated with playing time, like if I'm an LSU fan, you would have loved to have him, but no one was going to take Braden Swinson out of that starting spot. That would have been ridiculous, and LSU fans should have been ticked off in the other way because that would have been Brian Kelly, Kevin Peoples, and Blake Baker coaching in fear of the transfer portal. They didn't do that, and it cost them Deshaun Womack, but you also saw a guy that was one of the more productive pass rushers, not just in the SEC, but in college football, and we'll hear his name called, at least in the first 2 days next April. So when you look at who left, yeah, they had to go get some guys. I like Gabriel Relaford. He kind of splashed there towards the end of the season. We all like young players. Look, I work for a recruiting service, but you can't just expect guys to make a step and be the guy, especially in the SEC with the schedule that LSU has next year. So they go out and get, Jack Pyburn, who the best way to describe Jack Pyburn from talking to people is it's like, and I think LSU fans will like this, it's like if Witten Weeks was more of a pass rusher and played on the edge. Just a nasty dude, a guy that does not really, he just doesn't really care. Doesn't give a rip. Like
does he play the way that he talked about contact? Does he actually play that way?
Oh, have you not seen him?
No, I haven't seen any film. any film.
No, he does. Like this is a guy who legitimately plays.
So he likes to stick his face in the fan, like
the crazy white guy.
Exactly.
No. A lot of crazy. There's a lot of them that talk that way. There's a lot of players that talk that way.
Play that way too.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's crazy.
Like get the face mask type of.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. But I've seen a lot of guys talk that way.
Yeah, right.
And you pop on the film and it don't look that way. And I'm not saying that I haven't seen him. That's why I'm asking.
He had 60 tackles in 8 games. There's guys at LSU that have played for 3 years that don't have 60 tackles. And this is a guy who just gets after the football. And LSU needed more of that. Now, a lot of people were talking about his demands and what it looked like. And I talked with some people in his camp.
Is that real? Was that real?
No. It was – no. That's one thing. Even I don't want to get off subject. The kid that transferred into A&M, the Micah Hudson kid, that wasn't real.
Yeah, there's no way that was real. Like we read it.
Mikie said that's what he would have done if that's what he would have asked for.
Those are my days. That actually was in line with what I thought. What I would have. I think I would have.
He actually thought the kid sold himself short if that was real. That's what he said.
Yeah. He should have got a jet. The jet to fly the own private jet to fly the guys down there instead of just tickets.
Mikey's like, I'm Lebanese. I need 10 cars.
You don't go for 10 people. You need 15.
No, personal drivers for all my guests too, not just me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No
the best way to put it with Pyburn,
77 virgins.
I talked with someone in the building.
The Kapua suite.
I talked with someone in the building, and they pretty much said that his representation was great to deal with. And so they did not experience that. I think there was some disagreement on his usage of how he wanted to be utilized, and part of that was certainly might have been true. Like he wants to be used on third downs more. Florida had a guy that was a third down specialist. LSU doesn't have that guy. We're going into 2025. You think you might have it in Relaford, but Pyburn, maybe he can, be involved into that. Man, there's so many names. The kid from Nebraska, and
Jamari Butler.
Blanked on his name, but the other, Jamari Butler. This guy is very disruptive, and the stats don't pop off, but when you go look at what he's able to do, go back and watch their game against Ohio State. And Ohio State's offensive line was a little bit beat up this year, but go back and watch when he's played against Ohio State, and he's disruptive. He can get in the backfield, and that's what LSU needs, right? Like they need guys that just want to tear people's heads off, and I think that's just the bottom line. I think they've got that in Butler. From all accounts, they've got that in Pyburn. That's a guy who you're going to have to worry about targeting penalties. Like, I'll just say that. Like, that, a guy that just really wants to play full throttle, balls to the wall for 60 minutes.
I'd rather that than the other way. You can bring that back. How many guys do you think LSU is going to add? Like, how many total guys in the portal do you think LSU is going to end up having?
So they're, 9 right now?
They're at 9. It seems like they're about to have their 10th in the center.
Yeah. BK said 15.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're quite done with entries yet, to be honest. Or BK said 12, I think.
Yeah, I think he said 12.
I don't think they're quite done with entries, if that makes sense. I think that you're going to see some more guys go into the portal, because you have to ask, like, what is the fit for some of these guys? As they kind of go through what they are going to go through in winter workouts, what they're going to go through during the spring, is positions seem to and roles become more defined. I think you're going to see more entries. And so all that to say is we could see 15, 16, but I also want to sit here and say, like, what if there's a big name defensive tackle that just pops into the portal in, like, March? You're telling me LSU's not going to be a player for that? Right. So, I don't want to pigeonhole them into any number, but 15, 16 wouldn't surprise me at the end of the day when they kind of roll post-spring and then into the summer.
And speaking of, like, the spring portal, or maybe even that last second window of this early portal, would you think that there are some of these players that are still on contending teams that LSU could possibly go after, guys that are on, in the college football playoff, that they could look at and probably evaluate and see who wants to get in the portal that haven't yet?
Yeah, the national championship's on what, January 20th? That's the day of the national championship this year? I think that there's certainly a possibility. I mean, you saw some guys kind of enter the portal after the conference championship weekend. I know Georgia had the big DB that entered. Julian Humphrey went to A&M. I don't think you're going to see a lot of attrition until said teams' runs are over. And so certainly, I mean, that could be the case where you're going to have a guy that, I mean, let's just say whoever's in the national championship, and there's a guy that enters the portal on January 21st, right before the parade type of deal, because that kind of stuff happens. Let's just say that happens. LSU could be a player. Has, enrollment already started? Yes. Does that complicate when you can get the kid into school? Yes. I will say this, and I don't know how you guys feel about this. The whole idea of getting a kid in for spring ball, I understand why they want to do it. I don't think it means detriment to your team if you can't do it. The NFL does it. They draft guys in April, and then they work through the summer with mini camps and stuff like that. These guys are working in the summer. You get fall preseason camp. I don't think it's a detriment. So do I think LSU could be a player for, some guys on those teams? Yeah, I think they definitely could. I'll add this too. They hosted the kid from Texas who already entered the portal, and his team's in the middle of a run. He's on campus today, and tomorrow he'll leave tomorrow morning. So Sadir Mitchell is that guy's name. Big dude up in the middle, 315, 320 type of guy. So yeah, they're going to be in play. I don't want to pigeonhole them into a specific number. And like you said, Lloyd, who knows? I mean, there might be some disgruntled player on Clemson. There might be some disgruntled player on Ohio State. Look, I mean, what if Ohio State loses round one? Does Ryan Day get the heave ho, and is he done? So that opens up a lot of talent in that roster that might want to jump in the portal. So you never keep your options closed. The door's never closed. And I think LSU, like we're seeing, is going to be a player for everybody.
I'll touch on the spring entry of those guys getting in the school early. I do agree with you, but I will say, like, right now, so like I kind of think of it this way, just to kind of be relatable with this thing. 25 years ago, there wasn't that many kids playing travel baseball. Now every kid plays travel baseball. So it's at a detriment if all you do is play high school baseball. Because there's so many guys that do enter early and get into it, and the benefits that you can get from it, I do think it doesn't necessarily hurt your team, but it does slow you down a little bit, because that's just that much less time of you getting a chance to kind of be above the curve, if you will. And now the curve is a little steeper because there's more people doing it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And I think look, they'd love to get everybody in on January the 2nd, right? Like, they'd love to get all these guys in and get handed them the playbook. And, for certain positions, it probably means a little bit more. Certain aspects, if there's a prior relationship with a coach and what he likes to do, maybe it's not such a big deal. If it's a veteran player, maybe it's not such a big deal. But I do agree with your sentiment there, what you're saying. I mean, times have changed in that sense. And so I think there's an argument for both sides of it.
Let me ask you this before we get to the college football. I want to have your take on the playoffs and who you like this weekend. because we haven't talked gambling with you in a minute because we had an off week last week, so we didn't really get to talk about any betting. LSU's got a bowl game on New Year's Eve. They have an offensive line that they're not gonna have their 2 tackles, right? They've had some issues on that interior offensive line, even when they had the tackles there. What can we expect as far as the starters go for that? And it was announced today that Braden Swinson is gonna play in the bowl game, which I think is great. What can we see, or what can we expect to see from the LSU team in a week or so, 2 weeks?
I think you're going to see a lot of the younger guys, and there's a lot of idea for excitement. Like there's a lot of reason for excitement with that. And you mentioned Braden Swinson, like this is a guy that cares a lot about a legacy, and he mentioned that so many times, and I feel like that falls on deaf ears a lot. But he really cares about how, for better or for worse, what people think about him in an LSU uniform, and I think that's why he elected to play in this game. And it's also one last chance for him to put up some really good tape in a bowl game, New Year's Eve game, and continue to see his draft stock rise. And that's an opportunity. That's a guy who could continue to benefit from a really good performance. So, you have that. I think you're going to see Don McKinley. You're going to see him be a guy that you want to continue to develop, because with all the talk around defensive tackle, McKinley is a guy who really kind of showed out in that Oklahoma game. And now you enter a point where it's like, okay, you really showed out in the Vandy and Oklahoma games. Can you put together a good bowl performance? And then now we're talking about, a position room that has completely flipped in 365 days. Where, this time last year, McKinley, we were talking about, he's going to commit to LSU. He commits on New Year's. He plays at a low classification. Is his body ready? And now, a year later, he might be one of the bigger disruptors that you've got on the defensive line. And that's for a good reason, not out of necessity. So I'm excited to watch him. Ahmad Bro is just the semblance of selflessness. This is a guy who played defensive end at Ruston, was really, really good high school football player, and just transformed his body, bought in, and I think it's a guy that I don't know if he's going to make a bunch of all SEC teams, but I think LSU fans are going to continue to fall in love with the kind of guy he is. And so you get to see those 2 young guys in the middle. Defensive end, let's see what Gabriel Relaford can do. Let's see what a guy like Dylan Carpenter can do. Does he have a role? So I think there's a lot of interesting pieces to that puzzle of where you could go with this defense, and then elsewhere. Like, I think the secondary is really interesting because you've got some portal entries. Does Javian Tobiano have a role in this defense? We're going to figure out very quickly in this bowl game. Here's his chance to solidify anything heading into next spring.
You mentioned you led off with the Braden Swinson, which I think is unbelievable how much he, for some reason, just loves LSU. Like, obviously was brought here through the transfer. Well, he wasn't committed here. He was from Oregon. He got him through the transfer portal, and he's been one of the guys that's been more LSU than I've seen from anybody, or outspoken about how much he loves LSU. But to replace some of that pass rush, you saw that Patrick Payton from Florida State entered the portal today, and it was immediately announced that LSU was one of the teams in the mix. In 39 games played, 110 tackles, 16 sacks, 31.5 tackles for loss. Do you imagine that LSU would they've been in the mix for everybody, it feels like this at this point in time, and when they're mentioned, they're usually a winner. Is this somebody that you think is an absolute must-get whenever you consider losing a Swinson, losing a Parashand, and coming in with unproven guys on the edge? I feel like this is somebody that you might have to, if a number comes out, wouldn't be surprised by it for spending-wise.
Lloyd, you're going to hate me here because it did cut out. What was the name that you mentioned there? I heard the stats, but I didn't hear the name.
Patrick Payton, Florida State.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought you were talking about. I just didn't want to go on a diatribe about Payton and
Sean Payton.
Not be talking about him. Yeah, Sean Payton.
Gary Payton.
Let's keep it going.
Gary Payton. Walter. Look, in all seriousness, they could use a running back like Walter Payton, in all seriousness. But Patrick Payton, look, this is a guy coming into the season. He's a freak. Like, he is really good. And look, we put it on our board that, look, this is a guy that LSU needs to look at. Just a weird season this year. And the farther we get out from 2024, it's going to be interesting to me to really go back and look at, like, certain guys on that Florida State team were very individually talented, but that it just failed miserably. And so a guy like Patrick Payton's going to be slept on because it's like people were saying, yeah, he's okay. I mean, I see down here in the comments, Canes, whatever. A Miami fan says he's good, but not a crazy player. He tests out ridiculous, and there's a reason that he is going to have value at the next level because of the potential. Kevin Peoples just showed everybody what he can do with a guy like Braden Swinson and Savion Jones in 1 year. If you're Patrick Payton, where else would you want to go? I mean, let's be real. I don't know what type of draft stock Savion Jones had coming into the season. Braden Swinson was a guy you're like, yeah, he could be good, but he's a rotation guy. Braden Swinson's probably a day 2 pick. Mm-hmm. And Savion Jones is going to be in those mid-later rounds because of the work done, by him. So I think, in just my opinion, like, it could be a must-get because this is a guy that you really look. He needs 1 more year to put up some stupid numbers that he can work himself back into round 1 type of conversation. If not, then, I don't know where else he would want to go. Like, I think LSU's pitch is pretty self-explanatory. We just took 2 guys that didn't have a really crazy high draft stock. We put them on draft boards. You're a guy that has draft stock. We can get you into that day 1 conversation. I don't know what else he would need to know, in terms of what he wants to see and what he wants to go with.
I think the addition of him with the other guys that you brought in obviously would be a huge thing, especially with the need to get after the quarterback. So hopefully he signs with us. Hopefully he's able to get all those testing numbers and actually put it on the field. And he's got 16 sacks.
I was about to say.
So it's not like he hasn't done anything.
He's an alien.
Yeah, he's got 16 sacks. So he's obviously got some production.
He had 4 this past year, and everyone's like, he's not any good. I'm like, guys, he was filthy his first couple of years. And
so, wait,
he's still good. He just played on a terrible football team.
So that's the thing for me. So a guy playing that position who has those kind of numbers but only 4 this past year on a 2-10 football team. Yeah. Listen, I'm sure they didn't start triple teaming him every play. And I'm only saying this as I'm playing devil's advocate right here. Does it worry you at all when you have a guy that's coming in from a team that struggled the way they did? Was he a subtractor from what they should have been doing, or was he an addition in terms of adding to part of the problem if it wasn't going right, if you get what I'm saying? So does it, I guess what I'm asking is when you look at a guy like that who was at a program like that, who was expected to do this and they were nowhere near it, does it give you any kind of, I guess, minus in a mind, or you need to do more digging, or you need to look into it more, thinking about, well, who is he as a person? Because the numbers aren't the same, and he was on this kind of team. Is he going to bring that here?
Yeah, that's fair. It's fair to wonder that. I think also Florida State's a complete dumpster fire right now. And you could make the counter argument to your point, Jared, of
I'm not making a point. I'm asking a question.
To get out. Yeah.
I don't know anything about him, so I don't want to make it seem like that.
Well, yeah, no, maybe he sees he needs to get out. And look, you can also make the point, too, that when he put up some numbers, who was on the other side of him? Jared Verse, who's really, really good. Yeah. And so the first year without Jared Verse, what does that mean? I don't know. That's kind of what I said earlier, Jared, is I think 2024 Florida State is going to be a case study because everything just went so wrong. We may not know the true details of who was actually bad, who was actually good on that roster till years and these guys are in the NFL. And you're like, oh, that guy was actually pretty good. Right. He was just on a sorry team. So that's going to be part of it that LSU has to vet. Like when they get him in the building, when they talk with him, when they sit him down and they get a feel for what not only he, but his family and representation are saying.
Right.
There's already been guys where, and in this portal cycle already, the LSU sat down with, they're like, okay, we like the film, but we've got to see more of the person, and maybe what the person and the player and the agent wants isn't really lining up with the vision of what Brian Kelly wants for this team.
You said that 2020. You said. No, I'm about to say 2024 Florida State was a case study. Do you have any concern about 2025 LSU being a case study as Florida State built through the portal? Now LSU is going all in on the portal. Is there a cause for, I guess, a little bit of question of that happening at LSU where you get these guys to buy in, but there's no chemistry, camaraderie, anything? It starts to go bad, and it's like, why are we here?
Well, unless DJ Uiagalelei makes his way to Baton Rouge, I think we'll all be all right.
He's going to the draft.
He's going to the draft.
The Major League Baseball draft.
He's going to the draft.
Yeah, whatever.
And I look,
you better learn French Canadian, buddy.
I want to add to the Lloyd asked the question. I think part of that reason, they built through the portal, but they also lost a ton of top tier in the draft talent, right? Obviously, LSU's losing experience, but they're not losing first rounder after first rounder after first rounder that they had at Florida State. So I think it's a little bit of a different situation, but the point's still valid. I was just adding some context to it.
Yeah, no, in all seriousness to that point, I mean, Florida State lost, I can't remember how many first rounders, but off the top of my head, Keon Coleman and Jared Verse, right? Those two guys were released.
Yeah, and then the 6'7", and then the 6'7" wide receiver too, right?
Johnny Wilson. Yeah. So they lost Johnny Wilson. So they
the
lost,
quarterback.
I mean, look what LSU's really losing. And I'll be as nice about it as I can here. You know, LSU's, what are they really losing? You're losing Zion Alexander, okay? Your best cornerback on a group that's not very good. You're losing
your defensive ends.
Greg Penn. Okay. You're losing Braden Swinson, all right? You're losing Mason Taylor. That's probably your biggest loss.
Will Campbell.
For me.
Well, the line. Will Campbell.
Yeah, Will Campbell. And then you're losing Emory Jones, which, okay. I mean, I think Emory Jones is a guard at the next level personally. I don't whatever. That's a conversation for another day. But yeah, Mason Taylor and Will Campbell. And you're not going to find anybody in the portal that's better than those two guys. So outside of that, like to the point of like so many guys, I think the true foundation of what you have is still there. Like you still have your quarterback. You're bringing him back. So, to your point, Lloyd, remember when Florida State went all in the portal in 2022 and it worked out in 2023? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's what LSU fans could look forward to. Like, because you brought Jordan Travis back for another year. LSU brings back Gary Nussmeier for another year. You have continuity at key positions. Now you fill in holes with big-time players. Florida State also had Braden Fisk, who was a really, really good player for them in the interior defensive line. So all those things to say is, yeah, I mean, anything can happen. LSU go out there and, I mean, if they lose to Clemson week 1, then,
let's not get there yet. Let's not even bring that up yet.
Yeah, we got 9 months. We're all right or whatever until then. But in all seriousness, like anything can happen. I don't know. I think everything's a case study now, right? Like how much is too much in the portal?
Yeah.
And does Brian Kelly have the people necessary to make sure that culture and chemistry are correct? And how deep is the vetting process? I would argue that maybe Kelly's already learned from that. Because y'all remember that guy named Denver Harris that came and played?
Hell of a player.
Well, not really played, but just hung out around campus for 6 months.
I would even stay on campus.
I think you better. I don't even know if he was on campus. I don't know where it is.
It might not have been.
But in all seriousness, that's when you should have learned a lesson about culture. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. They hit on some culture guys like Braden Swinson. Like for him to be a transfer and how much he loves LSU, you would think he grew up 10 miles from the campus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, he just loves it. And so I don't know that we could play devil's advocate with that all day long, but I do think that maybe they've learned their lesson. But obviously, time will tell.
Last little conversation before I let you go. Obviously, first round of the college football playoffs this weekend. First game is Friday. I believe that is Indiana and Notre Dame on Friday, and then that's followed up by Penn State, SMU, Tennessee, Ohio State, and Clemson, Texas. What's your feelings on these games? The only game that I really can't put my finger on, I really don't know, is the Indiana Notre Dame game. I'm not confident in that game, but the other ones I think I'm pretty confident with who I like and who I don't like.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I think Notre Dame should win that football game. When you go back and look at what Indiana has done or not really done against good trench play, the two teams they've played with above average trenches, so offensive line and defensive line, they've struggled. They won against Michigan. They lost against Ohio State. That score at the end for Indiana made that look a little bit better on paper. And I know we talked about that, I think, last time I was on when we looked at the playoff and stuff like that. So Notre Dame's pretty strong in the trenches. And I feel like this is a game they could just control. It doesn't need to be high scoring. If Riley Leonard plays and controls the football, they can make Indiana play their version. It's not a knock against Kurt Cignetti. Look, AP Coach of the Year, you made the playoff, you're Indiana. Like nobody had that, on their card coming into the season. So I kind of like Indiana. The current
7 points.
I've got is 7.5.
Yeah,
I can see it. I can see that. But I mean, I like Notre Dame to win that one. The only other ones that I'm looking at, fellas, that I'm really bullish on Tennessee.
Me too.
Going into
So are we.
Yep.
So are we.
Even
though it's going to be 18 degrees?
Man, yeah. Ohio State,
soft.
I just don't.
Well, here's my point. Here's the point I made before the show.
I think Dylan Sampson's going to have a field day.
Right.
Personally.
I agree. And I think Tennessee, everybody thinks of Tennessee as this high-flying offense, right? But I think with this year's, you just look at Tennessee, they have one of the better defenses in the country. And everybody talks about Ohio State, like they're playing in the cold. They're not used to playing up here. I know a lot of those guys from Ohio State are probably from up north. Those guys aren't used to playing in December either. You know what I mean? Like, they're not used to playing in Ohio State, in Columbus, Ohio, in December in 18-degree weather. Like, don't act like that's something that they do regularly. Yeah. It's not the NFL. So, they may be a little bit more familiar with it, but it's not like they've been training for this all year.
Yeah, and the one thing about Tennessee that they've showed me this year is, they can drop a game they're not supposed to. But you kind of alluded to this, they can win in different ways. Go back to, and I know it was September, but that game at Oklahoma where you would think Tennessee in a Josh Heupel offense, Nico's going to throw the ball 45 times, they're going to sling it around the yard, they're going to out-athlete you. No, their defense won them that game. Their running game won them that game, and Nico just played mistake-free football. They didn't really make him he didn't have to play outside of himself. If they are able to do that, I think they win the game. And I don't think Chip Kelly and Ryan Day trust Will Howard. And
well, they shouldn't. They ran the guy out of there who could throw it.
They should have kept McCord.
Dude. Hands down should have kept McCord. So I don't know. I'm just kind of sit there. I like Tennessee in that one. I like Clemson to cover at Texas, but I'm taking Texas to win.
See, I think Texas is going to boat race them.
SMU Penn State. What do you say?
I think Texas is going to boat race them.
Clemson's better in the trenches. Clemson's built a little bit like Georgia in the trenches. TJ Parker's a really good football player. They've got some guys. If they can play mistake-free offensively, and I know that's obviously a given, an obvious thing there. I don't know if Texas. I don't know what Texas is going to show up. If it's the Texas that everyone thinks that they are, then they could boat race them. I think that they cover, but I could see a 10 because I've got it at 11.5. I could see like a 34-24 win, or 31-21 win, something like that. And then obviously for fans that kind of people that follow me and stuff like that, they know I'm a big SMU fan. I love Kevin Jennings. I love the Ponies. Man, I think their Cinderella run kind of ends at Penn State. I like when you look at the stats, and stats don't tell the whole story, but they do tell you a lot. Penn State holds the advantage nearly everywhere. That defense is really, really good at home. We'll see. I mean, I'd love to see SMU win. So I think Penn State wins that one. I've gotten the Nittany Lions covering too. So
I agree.
What was that? What does that put me at? I'm going Notre Dame winning outright. I've got Notre Dame advancing.
You got Penn State, Texas, and Tennessee.
And Penn State. Yeah.
Yep. That's kind of in line what we like. We'll see what happens.
3-team all underdog money line parlay.
I'm gonna do it too, though. I'm gonna sprinkle something on that one.
$3 to win $105.
That's it. I like that. I'm gonna sprinkle it on there too.
Lloyd, throw $30 on there.
That's what you said. 3 teams, so just the Saturday games.
Friday and
there's 4 games.
Yeah, but the underdogs for the bigger money underdogs. So SMU, Indiana, Tennessee.
Okay.
Money line.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, dude. We appreciate you as
Touchdown
always.
Jesus ain't walking through that door.
As always, we keep you later than we normally do, but we appreciate you always jumping on. Baseball is right around the corner. Playoff football obviously here, then baseball right around the corner. We're gonna have you on a lot. Talk some baseball through the course of the spring.
Let's do it.
Appreciate you as always. We'll have you on again soon. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Enjoy dinner.
Of course,
Enjoy dinner.
Y'all have a great Christmas too.
You too, man.
Merry
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Kwanzaa.
Yeah, well, time out.
Okay.
Lloyd said that he didn't like Christmas. I don't know if I want to come on the show.
No, Lloyd's the Grinch.
Lloyd can't be on.
Lloyd is the Grinch.
Grinch.
I'm surprised that he's wearing green, but he needs to be wearing the other color green.
Tell me y'all have never worked in retail by telling me y'all have never worked in retail.
Oh, my God. This is all he thinks about when he thinks about Christmas. He worked in retail probably 2 years of his how many years of living? And this is what we're talking about here?
Well, yeah, 25 days.
All right, Lloyd, I'm going to send this to you
4
after
years.
the fact, and you can put it up on the screen. I want everyone to go Google the Polar Express kid that sits in the back of this train and looks at the other kids and says, Christmas just doesn't work out for me. That's Lloyd.
That's
Yeah.
it.
That's what happened to me. I've been burned too many times.
No doubt. Lloyd got
kids back there crying about Christmas.
Lloyd got an Xbox 360 game, but no Xbox 360 console to play it on. That's why he's scarred from Christmas.
Doesn't work out for me. Would that not? I mean, I was a child. Let me fire up the N64. I'll play GoldenEye again, I guess.
All right, dude. We'll let you go. You gotta get out of here. Appreciate you, man.